Hold on.
Oh, I just got a pop-up telling me
that we're
recording. I like that it gives you the option to leave the meeting.
Right.
It's like, meeting is being recorded. Do you want to leave or are you cool with that? I just noped out.
It's adorable. Cool. Zoom is fascinating to me.
Indeed. I just dropped my iPad.
There we go. All right. That's to get rid of the pop-up as well. Don't we all love the pop-up? Okay. So let me kick this off by saying welcome to IBD, Inspirations Beyond Disabilities. I'm Ezric. He's Jason. She's Shy. And today for a guest, we have Caitlin. Caitlin.
There we go.
Hey.
Reason when you hit the record, the audio went away.
I'm sorry. It's so much better than privately getting recorded. And I've had people, they've said, when are we recording? And I say 20 minutes ago, and they're like, oh, okay.
That was when we first started the podcast. Jason would just start recording, and we're like, oh, okay, I guess we're recording.
Right.
It's funny.
But I'm just gonna restart because I failed.
All good.
I couldn't hear you anyway, so.
No, I figured you could hear me. I figured it was just the
I could hear nothing. I was like, oh gosh.
Hilarious.
I figured it was just the lag with the whole screen pop-ups because it happens to the best of us. So welcome to Inspirations Beyond Disabilities. I'm Ezric. He's Jason. She's Shy. And today for our guest, we have Caitlin. Caitlin, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Goodsell. I always call myself the other Caitlin on TikTok. There's obviously two of us. I wish I had I'm a health coach, and recently I've started talking about my dating experience and relationship experiences about being blind on TikTok. And it's been interesting and fun and all the things. So I'm excited to be here.
Beautiful. That's exactly why we pulled you here to speak on one, obviously your journey into TikTok, how you got here, and then two, to just piggyback onto, all your dating videos and talk about just in general how the scene as a visually impaired or blind person is.
Yeah. So do you want me to talk about my journey into TikTok first?
Yes, let's start off with that, and then we'll go into like the dating videos.
Yeah. So I wish I had some like really cool story as to like how I started. But to be honest, I started not posting and like not really knowing what to post. And then one day I came across, we were talking about this before, I came across Caitlin Wackerman's videos, and I was just like in awe. I was like, oh my gosh, this girl is me. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was like this. I've never met anyone who had a similar story to me. And if you know her story, like, again, it's very similar. We both ration insulin as diabetics and both went legally blind because of our diabetes. So very, very similar in that way. But it just like kind of happened. I just like started talking about it. And to be honest, it was the last thing I really ever wanted to talk about on TikTok. Like I was like, I'd be cute to like post like clothing videos or like my trip videos, and then those like got no views, and suddenly I started talking about being blind and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I'm like, oh gosh, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. Okay, cool. And a very similar thing happened with talking about dating, because ever since I've just like been in so many different types of relationships as being visually impaired. I was in a long-term relationship when I lost my vision. I went through the whole party phase after going through the breakup, like about a year into my vision loss, and just like trying to like refine myself, not only just like in dating, but like in life at that point. And then getting into a relationship about 2 years in, but just like experiencing all those different dynamics of like dating, hookup culture, just the relationships in general. And I just got questions, and like I just saw like all my friends talking about dating stories and how relatable they were, but then like being able to add being blind into those dating stories, I think was what like drew me in, because I would make blind jokes all the time. And I had so many stories about being at a bar and people like me telling them like, oh, I'm blind, or like me hiding it from them and them having no idea and like bringing it up later. And it was just like all these crazy stories that none of my friends really had. And I've honestly never really talked about. So far, it seems like people have found it interesting and have been asking for tips. And I just feel like a lot of us do face the same struggles when it comes to dating and visual impairment. And there's two Minneapolis girls that actually have a podcast, and they interviewed a girl yesterday who was talking about sexual assault, not to get like super heavy, but she brought up like bringing up that and dating. And it kind of just reminded me about like how that can like be very relatable to like bringing up your visual impairment like on a first date, and how like it's not always something you want to talk about right away, or it's like it's so different for everyone. It's like you want to disclose it, but you don't want to hide it. So yeah, I just think everyone faces such similar but different struggles depending on where you are in your vision loss journey, where you are with like just wanting to date in general, and just whatever phase of life you're in at that point.
You know, it's funny. My profile says I'm legally blind, so I don't need a woman that looks like Scarlett Johansson. I just need a woman that says she looks like Scarlett Johansson.
You just need her to like give off the energy of that.
All right, I just need a way to say, hey, I'm legally blind, without saying, so nobody can say you're hiding it. And I have to address it immediately in a joking way, so people don't think I'm blind and you hate me, you know?
Right. And I actually hid it for a long time. Like my last relationship, he didn't even like know until about a month into dating me. Like I just had no intention of bringing it up. Because at that point in dating, I kind of went into dating with the assumption that I was probably going to ghost him after 2 dates. So I get pulled out for 2 dates. And then we started like dating more. And I was like, oh gosh, this guy like wants to be in a relationship. This is getting harder to bring up now. Now it's like a little more awkward.
Yeah, because it's like you waited too long.
Exactly. And it's not one of those things you can just be like, oh yeah, by the way.
Well, good on you for taking it that long.
I think I don't personally use a cane, and like I have enough vision where like I'm kind of borderline could use a cane. Like it'd probably be beneficial at this point. My vision's changed a little bit over the last year. But I function so long without it that like I don't have that visual like you're blind like thing where so I feel like that almost like sometimes like I've kind of teetered on whether or not I want to use one just like at certain points in like when I'm in unfamiliar places. And also just because then it's like I don't necessarily have to always tell someone like, hey, I'm blind, like help with this. Versus like if you have one, you don't necessarily need to do that. It's a very clear visual indicator, like a known symbol, you're blind.
Yes.
But yeah, I was really good at hiding it.
One of my dreams is going to a party and being there for an hour or two before people know that I have a visual disability, so they get to know me without being like, what's he going to do? He's going to trip on that. Does he know that's there? Oh, watch, is he going to spill that? That's what I think people do at parties. And it's always announced like, this is Jason, he's blind. And I'm like, oh, I just wanted an hour, you know?
That's all. And I think that's why I like hid it for a while, like being in the bar scene. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to go to the bar and like have this conversation with like 7 people about blindness and this. Like, I didn't want it. I was at that point, like if someone would have brought up even the word blind, I would have broke down in tears at that point. Cause it was so early on. Like I hadn't really told anyone. It was very, very new. And my like version of like going to the bars at that point and like doing that, I don't even want to call it a dating scene, unfortunately, but just like I'm going to go inflate my ego for the night and distract myself from what's going on. Nice. Like the last thing I wanted to do was form any sort of like real connection, which I think a lot of people, no matter what your life circumstances, really can relate to. Just like, I don't really want to date right now. I'm not trying to settle down. Like, I just want to meet some people, have fun, and have a good time. Like, I think there's a lot of people, especially in their 20s, who are in that spot.
Yeah. And I feel like there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Sometimes people make it seem like you have to be looking for something.
Right. Or it's like, you don't know what you want. It's like, well,
no, I know what I want. I want this. I want.
Yeah. Like I just want to figure it out. Like I want the right space to figure it out. And I think actually, unfortunately, it's more that kind of pressure is actually more put on men than it is for women. Like people don't ask women like, oh, what do you want? Like it's always like, oh, you guys, you don't want a serious relationship. Oh, you're just a player then. Like, come on now.
Yeah. It is interesting though. Oh,
that would be an Ezra thing. You're the single guy.
You're the only dude. You're the dude.
Yeah.
Dude.
I'm a retired from dating dude, but you're still in. You're
I love
still
that
in the
title.
scene,
I'm a retired.
Retired from dating. That's great.
Well, I'm gonna just say for me, most of the time, like I'm the type of person that I'm like either most of the time looking for something serious or just something where I'm willing to see where it's gonna go. Like if it's oh my god, Rocco, go away. Where it's stop.
Yeah.
Rocco wants to share his opinions too.
Well, he's part of the relationship with
He's in the
Ezra,
dating.
you know?
He just wants a dog mom. That's really what he wants. But that's not the point.
He just wants a dog mom.
Yeah. That's so funny.
I was
like, in all honesty,
issues.
most of the time, it's either I really want something serious or I want to just take it slow and see if it develops into something serious. If not, then I'm just gonna keep it stepping. But
you want someone with like open options, right? Like where they're not, where they're also willing to just be like, I don't know, whatever happens.
I think that's the main key in dating, blind or sighted, is whether, no matter girl, guy, what I don't even know, they, them, whatever you want to call them, but like, I think the best way to date is when you're okay with losing them, no matter what happens. Like life is better with them, but you're okay without them. Because I think when you start to have that like needy, like desperate, I need them energy, they feel that. And most people, that like either scares them away or it really attracts the wrong type of person and can turn into something really unhealthy.
You know what? It's funny that you say that because I find myself being pretty much, unfortunately, I'm a simp. But that's not the point in this. Is I was talking to a friend of mine and they were talking about the one reason why they're afraid of falling in love is because they're not afraid of love. They're afraid of the pain that goes with the possibility of it going away. And especially with me being somebody that has a degenerative eye condition, that's why I prefer to just disclose from jump, like, hey, I'm blind. This is the vision that I have now, but eventually it could go completely south. The reason why is if you're here to stay, then you're here to stay. I don't want you coming into my life and then thinking, me thinking that you're, here for it all. And then shit hits the fan and you're running away with your tail between your legs.
Yeah. The commitment. Wow. You should know that everything begins and everything ends. And if you pay attention to just those 2 points, you're missing out on everything that's life. It's going to be a heartbreak at some point, right?
That is so true.
The greatest thing about it is you can meet somebody, begin it and end it all in 1 second if you want. Or you can expand on that chapter of the book as long as you want, but it's going to end in heartbreak. It just is. But if you're lucky, you'll experience that. And when you look back on something like that, you're going to be like, I really loved somebody. And that's what's going to matter.
Even
literally.
Even after the heartbreak, listen, you might have, hurt, you might have, went through it all, but you took a lesson from that. And you've had memories, you've made good ones, bad ones, nonetheless. You have a chapter to your novel that you can add. Now let's start looking for the next one. Let's not mope around and keep rereading the past. Let's go start writing a new book.
I think that's why having a certain sense of yourself before you get in a relationship, I always used to think that was so bogus. I was like, what do you mean? Like, we can grow together. Like when I was 21 and I thought I had it all figured out. And then,
fulfill me.
Right. Like, I think that's part of why having a certain sense of self is so important when being in a relationship, though, is because no matter how strong a person you are, when you're in a long-term relationship, part of your identity is becomes part of that person.
Yeah, of course.
And
that's shy all the way, right?
I was going to say, like, it happens. It's like your lives combined. That's what a healthy long-term relationship is, whether it's a year or whether it's 20 years. And I think to what you said about like being afraid of kind of the hurt that can come with losing it, I think that hurt can come even when you're with them. Like some of the most like hurt I've been in relationships, or like the most unhappy, have been when we were still together. I think like the big hurt like is usually an adjustment if you break up or whatever happens. But I think like I've been in relationships where like I was so unhappy and felt so alone being in the relationship, not even necessarily breaking up at that point. The breakup was sometimes the easier part because I finally felt a sense of relief.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and if you do it like an adult and don't burn a bridge, you can always see that person in another phase of their existence, you know?
Right.
But if you burn that bridge, you'll never know how wonderful they are, because you were meant to meet them for a reason, but just not maybe for a relationship right then.
Yeah, some people are just better off as friends. Like,
right. I've lost a lot of friends thinking they were like dating material, but they were just really great people that I should have known and not hit on.
I've had that as well.
Right.
And even my long-term relationship, like our relationship ended about like 8 months to a year after I like lost my vision, and we lived together for 6 months after. We had probably like the most civil breakup that I could have ever asked for. Like I have nothing but respect for him as a person still, like love his family. But we just like, we weren't meant to be in a long-term relationship. Like I wasn't even someone who was supposed to be a part of my journey long-term. And I think sometimes like that's so hard for people to like accept. And every circumstance is so different. Like there's obviously sometimes a lot of like betrayal and hurt that can come with like breakups and stuff. But I think as long as you can be just like respectful, breakups don't always have to be so painful or so dramatic. Like,
no, they don't.
Can be civil and it's okay.
Yeah. I have a tattoo dedicated to the concept of the fact that forever doesn't exist.
Oh, really?
I learned that a long time ago, like probably too young to learn that.
Yeah.
It's because even if I could use Joe as an example because he is my current boyfriend. If I marry him and we grow old together, one of us is going to die.
Yeah.
Because we're human beings that live lives and lives end. And if one of us dies, then sure, we didn't break up and we were together forever, quote unquote, but it wasn't forever because somebody died. So like, even if your relationship is a month or that person's like part of your life is like, wow, we spent like a week together and we had so much fun, but like you're crazy and I don't want to do this anymore. And like, okay, cool, bye. Like, people don't need to stay in your life forever, and you can still be grateful for the time that you spend with that. Like my ex,
you should be.
I had 3 years with him and I have zero regrets, like zero. Doesn't matter how the relationship ended. I got to love someone and be loved by someone and have fun times with that person and like do cool stuff with that person. And those memories are still part of my life. They're still part of my experience. You know,
and you
they
avoided
still
all of the negative ones, right? You avoided all the negative memories in it by communicating and being honest.
But even not avoiding them, even keeping them and learning from them in my new relationship and making sure that those things don't happen the same way, especially if they were my fault, you know, like the way you should be able to, and it takes time, but should be able to reflect on the things that you've experienced and take the good and the bad out of them and not just be like, well, I wasted 3.5 years of my life. I don't see it as wasted just because that relationship ended. Like I gained so much from that and he did too. And I don't know, haven't talked to him since it ended, but I mean,
I think there's a section of people that just are looking for anything and then it becomes a waste because it's not meant to be. It's just give me anybody instead of my somebody. And then it's two people just dealing with whatever until they find what they're looking for. And that feels like a waste sometimes.
Right. I think people also, they hold on so tight or like they're not even mad about losing the person. a lot of like the times when I look back and like felt uneasy about situations was when I knew that I wasn't in that situation anymore and I didn't like give the respect that that person probably deserved.
Yeah.
Or was accepting like, or like that person wasn't giving me the respect I deserved and I stayed longer than I should. Yeah. And that's not even a regret. It's just something that's those times I look back and I feel really, really uneasy. And I see that in other people. And I'm like, I have to like bite my tongue a little bit and be like, these people need to learn this journey because like it is really valuable to learn that. But now it's so easy for me to like spot out like someone who's wasting your time or someone who is or like when like I'm not into it anymore. Like I have been in 2 relationships now that I was like not as invested as I thought I was going to be, but couldn't end it or like felt like tried to end it and they just like made it really difficult. So I just avoided it. And I think, yeah, you're right where people really just want someone where in reality, like the only person you're always going to have is yourself. And it doesn't mean you have to be selfish. Doesn't mean you have to be self-absorbed in your own world.
Right.
But again, that comes with like being confident in who you are and what you can bring. Because once you're confident in that, then it's so much easier to know your worth and what you can accept and what you'll take from other people.
Yeah, definitely.
But like, I think people see it as rejection, a breakup as rejection, but that's not what it is. Like people grow and mature and like tree branches, you know what I mean? And sometimes you grow away from each other, but I think life is longer than people realize. And these people can come back into your life. They will on a rotation, on an orbit. And so we just need to get used to, like Shai said, forever isn't a reality. You know what I mean? Until it's over. And then it doesn't matter. But people are going to come and go. Everything comes and goes. And you got to get used to that. Finding that in the bigger scheme of things, the people that are going to come back and not the people that are just flying by. That's what we need to know, you know? We need to find those people that are going to fill our lives because somebody will fill my life for 3 months, disappear. Somebody else will come around and fill my life for 3 months. But if the 2 were together, that would be annoying, you know?
Also, one person isn't going to fill everything you need anyways, no matter if it's the healthiest relationship in the world.
Right.
Like you still need other, like my dad always told me, like, you can never trust one person with everything. Like, he's like, I would never trust, you never trust me to fix your car. I'm like, I don't drive anymore, but he would say that to me when I was driving.
No, good
or he's
point.
And I'm like, yeah, it's true. Like there's certain friends that like, if I like really just want you to listen, like I'm not going to go talk to you because you're going to have really strong emotions and lots of opinions. But like, if I want someone to like get riled up with me and like validate my psychoness I have once in a while, then I'm going to go to you.
Right.
But it's just, I mean, crazy examples, but like, it's true. Like you have certain people in your life that like serve a certain purpose or like that you can trust with certain things. And like knowing that about those people, I think is like so important. You have to accept like that about them. Like no one's going to be the perfect friend or the perfect boyfriend or the perfect husband or the perfect parents. Like it's just not what it is. And that's okay. It's what makes people
perfect is not a thing.
No, it's not. Just like forever is not a thing.
Yeah, perfect forever. Honestly, the absolutes. I read a quote. I don't even know who said. I read it in like a book when I was like in 8th grade or some shit. But the person was like, I don't deal in absolutes, and I was like, and they're like, yeah, always, forever, never. Like those words are not a thing. Like they're not a thing. They just aren't. Because if you think about it, like you can't say you're never gonna do something. You don't fucking know. You have no idea.
That's right.
You have no clue.
I always say that those words are kind of like swear words where they just hold a lot of power.
Yeah.
But people say them out of like wanting to not sound powerful, but like because of the emphasis that it puts on certain like feelings.
Right.
But they don't actually, they're not real.
Right.
It's usually out of emotion of some sort.
Yeah.
I've always found that when I say never, that means life is going to throw me like a tornado of it until I accept it. You know, like patience is my journey because I am constantly tested.
I think there's something like naive about, like I used to be similar. Like I remember saying like, I'm like, I will never, I was so adamant about this when I was in like high school. I told my parents, I was like, I'm never going to date someone younger than me. Like, and it was like a running joke in my family.
Right.
It was like, oh, Caitlin, what if they're a second younger? And I'm like, nope, done.
That's
It's funny because my last relationship, he was younger than me, which
there you go.
I mean, it didn't really work out very well. So like maybe that was a big sign.
Maybe.
Like, don't date guys that are younger than you. But it was just funny because I was like, yeah, it's never gonna happen. And it's like I've dated like multiple guys now that are like, whether it's a year, like 6 months or 2 weeks younger than me.
Yeah, like
It was just
I'm
like
a really, we all do it. Like I'm a really, really tall woman. I'm 6 feet tall with any shoes on, literally like Old Navy flip-flops, and I'm 6 feet tall. So I used to say I'd never date someone shorter than me, but my ex was like half an inch shorter than me, and I was with him for 3.5 years. So obviously not real.
I actually used to say that also, but like I'm only about 5'4". So,
yeah, so
my chances of actually doing that were a lot smaller.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, if a guy's shorter than me, then I'm like, they're probably pretty short, but like,
yeah, that's really short, to be honest, if they're shorter than you.
Oh yeah, I'm like, when I was on the apps too, I was so shallow for a while. It was like 5'10", swipe, they're not 6 foot. Like
Wow.
all my friends, which is funny because none of my like boyfriends, like my 2 serious boyfriends before that, were like 5'10" and 5'9". Like they were not tall by any means, but like they were taller next to me. And
yeah,
shorter guys
guys,
try harder.
Now my boyfriend is 6'7".
Ouch.
Super tall.
Oh Jesus, my uncle's 6'7". That's
Wow.
really, wait, you
That's
I'm
top shelf stuff.
That's so tiny.
Or sorry, he's taking, yeah. I'll send you a picture. It's funny.
I love that. My ex is 4'8". You know, I used to say 4'8" by 4'8", but she was just adorable, and I'm 5'7", so it made me feel like 6'7".
Like a giant.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all
It's funny because all my friends would be like, why are you going for the tall guys? Because some of my friends are like 5'7", 5 to 5'10".
Yeah, we
like,
need the
tall guys.
We do. Yeah, all you short girls are like, I need him to be 6 something. I'm like, why? A 5'10" guy is so much taller than you.
Right.
It really is. Like I've dated again. My 2 longest relationships were 5'9" and 5'10".
Yeah.
Like, they said one of them said 6 foot. I'm like, no. He's like, I'm like 6 foot. I'm like, you're 5'10".
Yeah, you got men out here lying because they know that you short girls don't want anyone shorter than 6 foot, so they're out here lying.
Yeah.
The dating apps are so shallow.
I know, they're awful.
It's like a job application.
Really, it is. It really is.
Thanks.
Gross.
Thanks for that, by the way.
But here's the difference. With these job applications, you never know if you get it at all.
Hey, that's happening these days. I filled out, when I was applying for my job that I have now, I must have filled out like 25, almost 30 applications. I was just like scrolling through Indeed like it was social media. I was applying so much.
You have
to. And when I tell you, I was contacted by 4 companies.
Wow.
And that was a lot. Like people were like, 4? You got 4 calls? That's crazy. That is considered a lot. Like nobody calls back.
Only 1 or 2 of them were like, yeah, well, we're possibly considering you for an interview.
Literally, I got 4 calls. Well, no, that's wrong. I got 2 calls and 2 emails. One of the jobs I had to send in an audition tape for. So I did, never heard from them again. And then the other 2 didn't give me an interview. And then the job I have now gave me an interview and I went in and stuff. So I got 4 calls, but really.
Or the worst is when you get the rejection email like a year later and you're just like,
yes,
oh, cool.
Like, we saw you.
That's nice.
I'm like, okay.
Okay, so this is a topic of one of my videos, and I've heard a lot of people bring this up. So I'm curious what your guys' take on it is. What is your take on Valentine's Day?
Oh, I don't like it.
Why?
Okay, so I'm not gonna say I don't like it because I respect it, and I respect people who sell it like they want to do it because they think it's cute and they want to show appreciation for their person. Like people who are doing it for the right reasons, I like. But the reason I don't like the holiday in general is because it usually ends up being really shallow. Like,
so you don't have a problem with Valentine's Day and like what it stands for. You like just don't really like what people turn it into.
Yeah, like people get really gross about it. They're like, well, you need to spend blah, blah, blah money on me. I want flowers. I want this, that, and the other. And it's like, what? Why?
It's so funny you say that. I told my boyfriend, I was like, I have one requirement for Valentine's Day. I'm like, I want flowers. I'm like, I don't care if we like, we don't even have to, whatever. Like, I don't even care. I'm like, I just want flowers. That's it.
It's fair. I mean, I've only received flowers maybe twice in my life. And it's a nice thing when someone gives you flowers. It makes you feel special. But like, I just don't like when people make Valentine's Day gross and they're like, they have to have all this stuff and it needs to be this. Or girls who are very one-sided with it, where like they expect all this stuff from their partner, but they don't do anything. I hate that shit.
I hated those.
Jason are like,
those.
Yeah.
Every time I've gotten a woman flowers, it's ended the relationship. They've been like, oh, that's sweet. I don't know what this says. You're thinking too long-term. Bye. It's weird. I took a girl out. We went to Trader Joe's, right? I was like, what is this? And my date was like, that's kale. And I was like, it's beautiful. And I bought that as a bouquet one day for Valentine's Day.
I love that though. That's actually like very endearing.
It's functional. You can eat it.
I would love that. Actually, I'd be like, oh my God, thank you. Like, honestly, this is something I wanted for so long.
Yeah.
But they're so overpriced. I don't know if they have them where you guys are, but like these edible
plants, they are expensive.
They're so disgusting. To me, that was like, I'm like, I want that. And I looked at how much they were. And I'm like,
yeah, edible arrangements are so pricey. It doesn't make sense.
Maybe so functional. Like, I'd eat it.
Yeah.
But you have to eat it fast.
You do. It gets gross.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Now I don't feel as guilty.
It's fresh fruit just sitting out. So either stuff it in your fridge or eat it fast.
Yeah.
Right.
One time when we were in high school, two of my mutual friends were dating, and he got her some of those edible arrangement chocolate covered strawberries.
Yeah.
And they were huge and delicious. But
they're
he was
so
like,
good.
They're so good.
Yeah.
He's like, this website is ridiculous. He's like, have you ever been on this website? And she's like, no, what are you talking about? She's like, it's fruit. It can't be that bad. And he showed her the one. She's like, oh my God.
Berries.
I actually got those strawberries for Valentine's Day in college. And like they had to ship them down like 2 hours away. So I'm thinking in my head, like, oh my gosh, how on earth did I convince some guy to get me like chocolate covered strawberries that are so overpriced? You could make them so for overpriced. You could,
yes, you could literally go buy some chocolate, melt it, buy some strawberries.
Yes, like it's so easy.
It's so easy. I can't. But yeah, that's my opinion on Valentine's Day. We don't really celebrate it. We never have. I didn't celebrate it with my ex either. We would go, we called it Candy Day, and we would go to like Walmart or something and just buy all the candy when it was on sale.
Oh, I love that.
And that's how we celebrated Valentine's Day.
I like the way you guys celebrate. That sounds great.
Right?
Still a celebration. You can't say you don't celebrate Valentine's Day. You can make that a thing. Instead of Valentine's Day, you celebrate Candy Day.
Candy Day.
I love that.
You should.
But yeah,
Ezra, what's your opinion?
So as a kid, I kind of liked it, and then I had my that was the day that I ended up realizing I lost my right eye, so kind of has like a real negative effect to me. That, and now as you guys know, Valentine's Day this Monday is going to be No Immigrants Day, where immigrants are, they're not going to participate in buying anything, they're not going to work, all that, which I think is great considering there's no real immigrant reform in this country happening anytime soon. So respect. But as for
I love you
Valentine's
sometimes,
Day in itself,
really much. I really do.
What was that?
I love you so much sometimes. You know what I mean? I really do.
I don't know if that's sarcasm, but I'm gonna just let it
go.
No,
it's good. It's not.
He just got this adoration in his eyes right now.
Yeah. He's like,
I know. He's like the star-eyed emoji.
Yes.
Well, he asked me once, what do I bring to the table? And I told him, you.
Literally.
I love it.
Literally. That's all.
That's all. Sorry.
Anyway, continue your thought.
But as for like my opinion on to Valentine's Day, I've always loved what, it stood for, like, the whole, showing that special somebody that you appreciate them, and I've always loved that in itself. I loved going out, spending time with that one person. What I didn't love is the commercialness of it and the whole, like it almost feeling one-sided, as we said earlier, because growing up, honestly, it wasn't up until I want to say my 20s that I finally started realizing, that women can actually show man appreciation and buy them gifts and not really, make it seem like a chore. Like for me, every time I would get a girl something, it'd be like, okay, I got her this. Months later, nothing. No, thank you. Like it was a thank you, but it was like the most half-assed thank you. You know what I mean?
It's like, oh, thanks.
It's expected. You gave her what was expected, so it wasn't
exactly.
A gift.
And I'm not a fan of. But
right.
Lately I've been, blessed to be talking to women that are, very equal-sided and have that mindset of like, you're gonna do this, I'm gonna do this too. Like, why am I gonna not just like, it's not just me. I mean, it's not just me that deserves this. You do too. Like, what the fuck? So yeah. I like what it stands for. I hate what it's become.
Right. I think if you gave your woman a box of chocolates, the remote, and started rubbing her feet, she'd be in heaven. You don't have to take her out for a $500 meal unless you're trying to prove that you.
I don't know about feet,
care.
But I'll do shoulders.
Don't touch my feet.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I cannot have someone touch my feet.
Wait,
I don't know about feet, but I'll rub shoulders.
I'm like the opposite. Scratch my back though, and I will.
There you go. Yeah.
I love every time I find someone else who's like, please don't touch my feet. I get so happy because everyone in my life thinks I'm a weirdo. I don't like feet at all. Don't touch my feet. I won't touch yours. Don't like rub your feet on me in bed. Nothing. No. Keep them away from me. And if they're near me, you need to have socks on them.
All right. And you could stroke her back, you could rub her head, and you can do nice things for her and just let her zone out.
Though. They're like, my feet are clean. I'm like, that's not the problem. Like,
yeah, that's not the problem with feet
at
all.
Feet are just gross.
Right.
Yeah, like
they're the first things you sweat from. Get them away from me.
Dang, yes. Oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not alone. No. Okay, sorry.
Nope. It's a valid point. You should know somebody before you dive into body parts.
Because Joe knows that if he tried to rub my feet, I'd kick him in the face.
Right.
So
well, then lesson learned quick.
But most people know about me. If you just start rubbing my head, I'll just lean on you and be in heaven.
I'm like asleep in two
right.
I'm with my back.
Love it so much.
Yeah.
I love that too. Back scratches.
Oh, that just like puts me out instantly.
See? And sometimes those moments are nice instead of the stress of, okay, I got you flowers, you got to dress up, we got to go get something to eat, we got to show each other everything. But you could just stay home and get sushi and
respectfully, I'm more of a homebody. Like, yes, going all out for Valentine's Day is nice, those nice. So my go-to thing is like, I like a nice picnic with a view, or we're going to go out to a restaurant with a view, something with a view. Ironically, I know, blind person talking about with a view.
Well, here's my question then. As the man, how do you plan a Valentine's Day? Because a lot of times I'm like, I want to plan the surprise, but guess what? My date is the driver.
See, I live in a place where that's not a problem, so I can't answer.
Yeah,
that's valid.
He has functional public transportation, Jason. Right. We don't know what that's like here in Florida.
Yeah, we don't have that here either, unless you live in like downtown Minneapolis, and even then it's sketchy at best.
Yeah, we don't.
Unless we're gonna like both take Metro Mobility and wait for 7 hours. Like,
dude, I used to do that with my little sister. We used to like take Tops. It was Tops in South Florida in Broward County. It was Tops, and we used to take it to like the movies and the mall. And I'm like, hey, they said they're coming. We're just gonna wait together. Like,
right.
It was because I was her big sister by like 6 or 7 years, and I was like, I'm the age where I should be able to like drive my little sister around and go do fun stuff, but I can't. So we just Tops together. Yeah. I'm like,
so to your point, I think if you're the guy and you want to plan a surprise, I mean, I feel like you can plan it out, or like you can do it in phases. Like I think you can plan it without having to be the driver. Like you can make
now
the
that
reservation.
now that there's
can
Uber
always
and
do
Lyft,
this.
Right, but you
always
can
do
even
this.
like
Take
tell
out-
them like, hey, this is where we're going. Like, and they don't have to be surprised the minute they get there. Like, they
right?
can be surprised the day of like, okay, we're gonna do this. Like,
Yeah, you propose the plan on like the day of like, hey, surprise, I made reservations for this, and this is where we're going, and blah blah blah.
right.
And then she can be like, oh, this is gonna be so much fun. And she had no idea.
Yeah. Or you
Okay.
can
But
do it in like a 2 or 3 step deal if you want to be really extra. Like one of my like best guy friends when he was dating, he did like really extra first dates where he would plan like, okay, we're gonna start somewhere and get a drink, and then we're gonna go and have like apps somewhere else. So it'd be like apps or dinner. And then we're gonna have like dessert somewhere else. You can make like a 3-step place where you can tell her like, okay, we're going to the first place, and then like after, and like depending on how
but
extra you
she
wanna
doesn't
be.
know until
And yes, and that's not even necessarily like Valentine's Day. Like I think Valentine's Day is just a day about love. You don't have to do anything super extra. You don't have to. I don't do gifts on Valentine's Day. Like I loved it as a kid. I don't know if you guys did this, but we made these little boxes in school. And we got to put the Valentines in. That was my favorite thing ever. Like I would be so particular about who got which Valentine from my box and who got which piece of candy.
I love that.
And it was just like the most fun ever. And I wish we could still do that as adults.
Me too. I proposed it at my job. I was like, guys, what if we did Valentines for each other? And they all laughed at me. I was like, it would be so cute though. Because at my school, we used to get like a shoebox.
Yeah.
And we would like decorate, like you had to make it super cute. And then what we used to do is everybody had to bring Valentines for everyone.
Yeah, we had to do that too.
All inclusive, but you
Which
would
sounds
make
really
like,
bad. It's like we had to.
yeah, I know, but you had to. And then you would make like everyone would sneak and make the ones for their friends like really special. Like they put extra candy on it, or like write like an extra long note, or like. But everybody got. So then by the end of the day, your box, because we had like 26 kids in our class, so your box was just like full of candy, and then the teacher gave everybody something. It was so much fun. I
love that. Or like like for me, like the little brat I was, like I didn't like someone, I'd be like, they get the green Valentine because I don't like
like yeah. Or like
that hurts because my favorite color is green. So
right, and that person's probably like, oh my god, she loves me.
Right.
How'd she know this was my favorite color?
Or like if my crush would give me a certain Valentine, I'd be like, oh my god, he said be mine with a candy heart.
Yeah, and then you look at me like everyone has the same thing. You're like, no, that doesn't matter. Mine is
like that handwriting was bigger.
I was wondering why all of my relationships from kindergarten to 4th grade were 1 year, because I always got this be mine thing, and I was like, oh, I'm in a relationship, and then the next year it would be like be mine, and I'd be like, Lisa, I'm in a relationship with you now. It was just a holiday thing. Darn it.
Honestly, some of my best Valentine's days though have been spent single.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that I see a lot of, honestly, mainly girls do. Is if they're single, they're like, oh my god, I hate Valentine's Day. Like, I want to just get drunk and be alone.
Yeah, people used to tell me when I said I didn't like it, they're like, oh, it's just because you're single. I'm like, no, I just don't like.
My favorite Valentine's Day was my first Valentine's Day out of a relationship for a while. Like, very fresh breakup. I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be bad. My dad flew into town. He took me to a hockey game. He took me out to dinner. And then I bought myself like flowers and like a kombucha, and was like, this is like, honestly, that was one of my favorite Valentine's days. Or like in college, I was single 1 year. Actually, this was the year I got the chocolate covered strawberries. I just pretended I was single. And and we had my house had a Love Stinks Let's Drink party. Like,
it's fun.
Like we just, granted, I mean, I wish it wouldn't have sounded so salty. Like now it probably would have been like a Valentine's Day. Like I think that stuff is so cute. Like I feel like a day surrounded with love doesn't need to be so like extra. Right. Like you want to make it extra, fine, but like doesn't have to order some pizza for yourself. Like have a glass of wine.
I really want to order one of those stupid heart-shaped pizzas that like Pizza Hut does.
Ooh.
You know what I'm talking about? They're really dumb because they charge the same amount, but since it's a heart, it's technically less pizza. But like, it's so cute. I kind of want one.
See, everyone's gonna be Team Valentine's Day after this. I'm gonna be like, all right, guys, everyone celebrate Valentine's Day. That's
But
funny. So we went out to dinner
do
last
it with
night. Why is it
actions
so
and
busy?
not
And I'm
like
like, oh.
consumerism, you know? Like I
Yeah,
like
for
Ezra's
real.
point. Like a Valentine's Day should be showing somebody appreciation because of what you know about them, not because you're buying something for them, you know? Like
Yes.
if
Yeah,
somebody likes
totally.
steak, get them a nice steak. If somebody likes fresh air, take them on a walk. Like there's things you can do for people in your lives. Just be nice. If we were all just nice to each other on one day and didn't buy everybody everything and just was nice, the world would be changed so much better, I think.
Yeah,
Right.
but then
And
all the corporate companies would hate us.
I don't think the
They
gift
already
factor
hate
is
us,
bad
by the
because
way.
I think everyone receives love in different ways. And if someone receives
Mhm.
love by like receiving gifts, or like I like to call it tangible love instead, because it can be like a note or like it could
So
be
they
something
can
like
show
that.
it. Look at what my boyfriend got me. Chaos
Right,
Tower.
exactly. Like I think as long as you give the person in your life love the way that they receive it and not the way that you want to give it.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
That's
Good
so
point.
important.
How they want to receive it.
That took a lot for in my current relationship to figure out how each other receives love, and both ways are very hard for us because for Joe it's acts of service and for me it's like words. I forget what they call it. What is it? Words of affirmation.
Affirmations, yeah.
So he has trouble being like vulnerable in the way of like telling me like how he feels or like giving compliment. Like he's much better now, but when we first started it was really hard for him to do that. And I grew up very much if you want something, get up and do it yourself. Which sounds bad, but like that's how
you're the oldest
raised. I am the oldest. I have a little sister and we were both raised by a single mom, so it was very much, oh, I'm hungry, mom's not home from work, I'm gonna get up and make myself a sandwich. Like do it yourself. That was very much how I grew up. And obviously if we helped each other when it made sense, like, oh, I'm going to the kitchen, do you want anything? Or but not like we're both laying on our ass being lazy and you want something so you just ask me to get it, like
or don't even ask, just be like, I'm gonna get a sandwich, hoping the other person will be like, oh, I'll do that for you, because that's what you're supposed to do, is guess, you know.
And so it was really hard for me to just like voluntarily do things for him, and it was really hard for him to like compliment me. Like he wasn't vulnerable in that stage yet, and I wasn't used to doing that for people. So like both of our love languages were like so hard for each other to do. But I mean, it's been 4 years, we're pretty good at it now, but it's definitely important to figure out what the person needs to feel special and like to feel loved, because it's not the same for everyone at all.
It's so funny you say that, because the way I receive love is like I realize it's physical touch and words of affirmation. I'm a big words person. And the guy I'm dating now, he like is not very verbal, like will do anything, like it's like shows how we feel like all the time. Like great guy.
That's Joe.
But last week, so I told people for like weeks, I was like, I feel like he's gonna, not weeks, probably days. I was like, this guy's gonna tell me he loves me on Valentine's Day. And then my psycho self last week, laying in bed, he like didn't put his hand like on my leg on the couch, like all night. I was just salty. I was like, he comes over and he's like, oh, like he just thought I was anxious. And I was like, yeah, I was anxious, whatever. And I was for like a different reason. But the next day, I just like turned over and I was just like salty. He just tried to go to bed. I was like, do you even like me? And he's just like, we're dating. And I'm like, well, you never tell me that you like me. And he's just sitting there like, oh my gosh, this girl. And then he's like started saying a few things, and then he's like, yeah, I'm just really falling for you. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, just falling for me? He's like, well, I was going to tell you I loved you on Valentine's Day, but I guess you're ruining it. And I'm just like, couldn't even wait like an extra week, like literally had a sixth sense that it was gonna happen.
That's so funny.
Like, oh my gosh, my crazy self, like that's so hilarious. Stubborn, needs to have things like immediately, no patience.
And you had to wait till you were upset to say something. Like you could have said something when you discovered it, like playfully, but you had to wait till you were upset and be like, really?
I didn't like really discover it. I just had like this feeling.
I've been upset for
and
24
we started
hours.
dating because I was we were laying, like I had gone up to like 2 hours away to meet his family, and I'd met his parents, and he was saying like, "Oh, you guys officially?" I'm like, "I don't know." Then we were laying in bed. I was like, "Are we dating?" So and like we were talking about like saying "I love you." In my head, I was like, "He needs to say it first."
Yeah.
Like I was
he does.
so like, and then
I go, so funny.
I hope he never listens to this. Kill me.
See, I have a hair splitter where I say, I love you. That means I love you just generally. But if I'm in love with you, that means something, so I can say I love you very easily to a friend or a partner. But if I say I'm in love with you, that means something.
Yes. But it freaks me out because the last guy I dated told me after like 2 weeks, and he said it to me like a year of our relationship, and I couldn't say it back. I was like, "Yep."
I think men should start with, "Hey, I got you." Men should start with "I got you" before they go with "I love you."
And he did it so casually. We're sitting at a bar. He was like, the day he had met all my friends. I think that night was the night that I told him I was blind, actually. But like he was like, "Oh, I'll get you a drink," like kissed me on the cheek. He's like, "Love you," and I'm like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
I was like, I wanted to like, I felt like I was gonna be sick.
He was just testing the waters. You could have ignored it. He would have just ignored it.
I did ignore it. I didn't say anything about it for like 2 months. Then he's like, "You never said it back." And I'm like,
wow.
I didn't feel it.
Proving that men have just as many emotions as women. Aw.
Totally.
That one. Yeah. But I think everyone has emotions. Women
Something tells me what we were just hearing was an emotionally charged man. Sorry.
He was very emotionally charged. He was something.
Something else.
He was something. That's like one of those relationships I look back on and I'm like, great guy, but like I should not, like that relationship should have ended after like a month, not a year.
There is something to be said for being too in touch with your feelings. You know what I mean? It's a sliding scale, I always say, You have to know when to be the man and when to be the soft guy. Like I always say, I'm a pit bull laying on the couch. I get to lay around 99% of the time, but 1% of the time you want me to be that manly man,
See, for me, it wasn't the emotion. It was the like, I am a very, if you can like see me and understand me, like that to me is gold. Or like if you can intuitively just like know what I want, if you can like, if you have that instinct about me, like I will melt no matter who you are. And the thing with him was that he had no understanding of me at all after a year. Like no matter what I would say or do, like I would try and set a boundary. And it's like he just had no like internal instinct. And it's so he was, I think he could sense my like distance. So he would try and overcompensate and would force me to get really, really sharp in the relationship and be like set harsh boundaries and say like, no, like you're not doing this. But it was because like, and I saw a video about someone else saying this, like when someone sets a boundary with you, it's not them trying to push you away. It's actually them trying to keep you in their life.
Yeah. They're making a line where like, in order for me to enjoy your company, I need this.
Yeah. And it's okay for people to do that. And people shouldn't get so offended and hurt when there are boundaries set. Because no matter what type of relationship, whether it's a friendship or if it's with family or if it's a relationship, like you with yourself, like you with myself, I need to set boundaries.
Yeah.
Or it's like people just get so offended or they used to, or if they're not super like confident in who they are, their emotions, then they just
I think we have to live those boundaries too, though. A lot of times we set one just to break it. You know what I mean?
It's a commitment to yourself. Like I know that I need this. Like I know that this is a boundary that I need in order to keep myself mentally, emotionally, physically healthy, whatever it is. And I need to try my hardest to make sure that people respect it. But sometimes you just lose your mettle a little bit.
Or as women, especially, like one day we want something and the next day we just like want nothing to do with that thing that we loved the day before. We're just like very unpredictable by nature.
Of course.
So I have to ask just these last two questions of all of us. One, it's the whole question of like disclosing when it comes to dating. I know we were talking about it in the beginning. what is your opinion? Why do you guys choose it? And then the last thing is, and I guess this goes hand in hand. What is your take on, the way, I guess, a female or a male is viewed when it comes to being visually impaired in the dating scene? Like, what do you guys assume is the differences? The way we're viewed as far as like, the partner in the relationship, are they going to think we're this?
I'll say something. I'll say
All right,
that
go ahead.
like I put it up front, but I'm not really in the dating scene, so that's why I can, is because I'm not expecting results. But I do think as a man, I fall under the 3-strike rule because of my disability, where I don't drive, right? And then I don't drive, I don't see, and I don't have the money to compensate for either one. So it's the 3-strike rule just because of my disability, basically. That's how I feel about dating, that I don't get past the application process too far.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. As far as the disclosing, now that I'm a cane user, I've only been a cane user for like maybe 3 years. Honestly, probably my whole relationship with Joe. I got my cane when I first started dating him. He's one of the reasons I started using it regularly, because he wouldn't get off my ass about it.
I love that. You will change for love if it's love, right? You will.
It was just like, he's just like a very protective person, and he was like, if you know this thing is going to make your life easier, why are you being an idiot about it? And I'm like, you're not wrong. But anyway, so before that, I was not using a cane. I've been legally blind my whole life. I just didn't know that that's what it was, because I've been night blind my whole life. But my vision got worse in high school, and my ex knew me in high school, so he kind of got to see that whole process of like, I can't see enough to function anymore, blah blah blah. So I had like, he got to see me like start using assistive technology and like go through that whole process before we were even thinking about dating. Like, we just knew each other. And then when I met Joe, I was at college. I traveled with a CCTV that I used to do my homework sitting on the floor in the hallway. So like, he knew too. It actually sparked a conversation. And it was at the point where like I was past being able to hide it anymore, because it was just part of my life. I had physical things that I was walking around with that showed, whether it was my CCTV in college, which if I wasn't doing schoolwork, people didn't know. So I could still mask because I wasn't using my cane. So as far as like getting hit on and stuff, that happened a lot without people knowing. But disclosing, I feel like in order for me to go out with you in any way, which people usually like to do at night, you need to know that I can't see. Because I can't see in the dark. So if you want to take me to a movie, you're going to find out that I can't see as soon as you pull up at my house.
Oh my God, because I'm going to grab your hand the minute we walk into that theater, because I just went blind. I don't see anything.
Like, there's no, it's not an option for me. As soon as we leave conversation mode and go into real world, you have to know. Because I have no choice. So that's just the way it is now. I didn't really get to date much before it was obvious, I guess. So I don't really know what that's like, but I do know that having them know up front made it so much easier, because I still have to have that conversation of like, hey, look, this is what I can see now, but my vision is getting worse. It's not always going to be this. And I'm going to have to learn a lot and adjust a lot, and you're going to have to do the same. So it's still being afraid of them walking away when that does happen, because it will. And I still in the back of my mind, like hoping that they're ready for that, because I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I've had my condition my entire life. And when it got worse when I was 17, I went into a depression, even though I knew that my condition could get worse. And I knew what could happen, and I knew, hey, it's gonna get worse. The doctors told me that when I was 6. Like, I've known that, but I still went into a full meltdown, which I could still do again when it gets worse again, even though I'm quote unquote prepared and I have my cane training and I have all this knowledge about where to find help. I could still lose it. And that person would still have to be there to support me and deal with that, because it's going to happen. And so there's still that part of disclosing the fact that, like, it's going to get worse. But I feel like it's easier because they already know it's a thing, so it makes it a little easier, I guess.
You are disclosure.
Yeah, honestly, like, it's just, and then at this point, when I look at you, you can tell something's up, because I look at you out of my peripherals these days, because my central vision has started going to shit. So you already know something's wrong with my eyeballs when I look at you. So there's no point. Disclosure it just is.
Yeah. For the right person, it won't matter. And for the wrong person, it's just a way to get them out of your life,
That part, honestly.
How about you, Caitlin?
Yeah.
Well, I actually made a video about this because I was curious, and the main response was that people are like, say it up front. The argument behind people who said that they like maybe don't is more kind of like what you said about like how you want to be at a party for an hour before like they can get to know you before they can get to know like your condition and like kind of see you as that. So I told you like my ex-boyfriend, like he didn't know until a month in. So like I can't exactly say, yeah, disclosure is the way to go when I've never actually like practiced that myself.
Well, you've done it both.
I would agree that it's probably the way to go.
Yeah.
From like responses on my video, I've seen that most people like believe it's the way to go. But I will say that like in my relationship now, like I never really had to have the conversation like I did, because like I was like, I think I'm blind, because it was a mutual friend. It was like a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
And he had like been to my house, and like again, there's no visual indication that I can't see. Like I kind of like my eyes are like don't like focus fully. So like again, kind of like you can tell like maybe there's something up with my eyes, but like, blindness, is it just like a lazy, like you don't really know.
Yeah, you don't really know what's going on.
Exactly. So I would say yes, disclosure is the way to go, but also I think when you're on the apps, people get really afraid of just being like, hey, I'm blind, and having someone like write you off because of that. So people's argument to me when they were like, we were discussing it was like, okay, so do you disclose it like on your profile? Do you just like disclose it in like a message, or do you disclose it? Like I think my conclusion I've come to, if like I were to ever be on the dating scene again, I think it would be like, as long as you disclose it before the first meetup.
Yeah, that would be my thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't think you have to put on your I think it's personal preference.
Yeah, it is. I honestly, I have a friend of mine that yells at me. She's just like, you need to stop putting it on your profile. I'm like, I could choose to, but I don't want to. Reason being is, in my opinion, it filters out all the childish people that I'm gonna have this dumb, awkward conversation with that I'd rather not. I'd rather them, if they're gonna get to the question of, oh, how much can you see? Fine, that's fine.
That's a valid question. Yeah.
Yes.
But if we're gonna go in, oh, so you're blind. Can you drive?
Yeah, no.
I always tell people, like, when it comes to anything, because I haven't been blind my whole life, but I've been a diabetic since 11. So like disclosing that I'm a diabetic was always something that like I have faced for a lot longer than disclosing vision loss in dating.
Yeah, that's my point.
It was something that I kind of would disclose on a need to know basis. Like if something happened, like I was never hiding it, but I would be like, hi, I'm Caitlin, I'm a diabetic. Just the same way as I'm not like, hi, I'm Caitlin, I'm blind. Like, yeah, exactly. It comes up or need to know, like I have no problem telling someone like, hey,
there you go. Need to know.
Yes. Kind of like so again, if someone's picking me up and like we're gonna be going somewhere dark, like, hey, like I can't see. Like, so I think it's just like, you gotta tell people like I need to know. You don't need to tell your whole life story about vision loss on a first date.
Nope.
Because if we're being honest, like not every blind person is gonna date another person who's also blind. Like if you do, great, that's awesome. But like if you're dating someone that's sighted, being someone who's like, I've dated sighted, and like I've also dated like been the blind girl that dates sighted guys. Like I don't go into it and just talk about my vision loss for 3 hours on the first date
that's
because
boring.
they don't they don't care, but
that's
like
not all you are either.
they
That's
can't
my point,
relate
yeah.
to it.
That's not all we are, right?
No.
Yeah.
So I think like just need to know, like you just say like, okay, like by the way, can't drive, can't do this. Like you just almost kind of have to keep it like lighthearted and relatable to them. Be like, hey, like if I need help with this, this, and this, like great. And then usually I'm assuming they'd be like, okay, block, or they're gonna be like, okay, that's cool. And then as you get in deeper, like you can get into like for like you have like you and Ezra have like degenerative eye conditions. So like, but that you don't have the conversation about, you don't have to like be like, oh, by the way, I'm probably gonna lose my vision at some point in my life. Like that doesn't need to be a first date.
First date, no.
Don't want it to be. So I think need to know is kind of the way that I would go about it. I definitely wouldn't suggest hiding it because I think with a lot of people that I was talking to when I was doing that, like it broke a lot of trust with some of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Like and I didn't really understand why, because in my mind I was doing it for kind of like my own selfish reasons and to protect myself from like that hurt and that rejection. Because again, in my mind I was like, well, am I even gonna meet these guys? Like, do I even really care to have the conversation? And then I'd start meeting them and I'd like hide it and like figure out some way to like say why I'm not driving, or like have them come to my house, which is so unsafe. Like I should not have done that with as many people as I did.
Yeah.
But like I just didn't need to, like I just wish I would have gone about it a different way, because it definitely was not the right thing. So it's not a good way to just start off like, by the way, a month in, I'm visually impaired.
I feel like
I was gonna say, because you said of lying in other ways, like I would be lying as to why I wasn't driving, or like I would be avoiding the truth as to why I wasn't driving, or like I used to use alcohol a lot to like describe, to be like, oh, like I can't do this, like help, like used to be like I used to use alcohol and like going out is like the comfort level, because it's like, okay, no one's driving, we're all Ubering home, like that was my like protection at that time. And then as I wanted to like get into an actual relationship, because kind of like Ezra, like I've always been a relationship person, it just at that point in time I wasn't in the place to be in a relationship. But yeah, that's my advice on disclosing.
I feel like need to know is sort of how I functioned as a kid, because I've had the night blindness since I was born, so that was just always part of my life. But like my day vision was great, like I could still read and like be a person, and like you really wouldn't know unless you went out with me at night. So it was need to know. My friends that wanted to go to the movies on the weekends, they knew I was blind because they had to guide me in the movie theater. So like my close friends knew growing up, and I went to a K through 12 school, so you grew up with all the same people. But there were people that I went to school with that didn't find out that I was visually impaired until I started posting about it on Instagram like 4 or 5 years ago. They're like, what are you talking about? They're like, I've known you since you were 7. Like, what? I'm like,
that was diabetes. They're like, you're a diabetic? And I'm like, what?
Yeah, it was definitely need to know when I was a kid. That's how I treated it, because if I wasn't in a situation where it was dark, why do you need to know? Because otherwise I'm fine. So all my close friends knew and no one else did. Like when my vision got worse, there were teachers that are like, what are you talking? I was like, yeah, I've always had this condition, but it's worse now. And they're like, what? Like to them, it was like I went blind overnight.
They were probably very confused.
Yeah, they were.
Ezra, what was the other question that you asked?
Well, the other one was, what is your opinion on how people view, like in the dating scene, people view a blind or disabled man versus a blind and disabled
like, are you saying like the struggles that we may have that are different? Or
basically.
I've actually gotten a lot of guys comment on my videos asking about like tips on dating blind as a man, and I'm like, well, I don't have a ton of tips for you because I'm not a blind man.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think dating in general as a guy is a lot harder than it is for a girl, because
100%
dating sense where like men are kind of like meant like in masculine energy, and again, you can be a woman with masculine energy or you can be a guy with masculine energy. Like you're kind of taught to pursue. So as a blind woman, I think the struggles we face are a little bit different. Like I think people view us as more like, well, can they be a mom? Like, can they take care of a family and like that kind of thing? It's more of like a marriage or like long-term commitment topic. Whereas like for men, I think it's like, okay, can you provide? Can you,
can he work? He can't drive me around. So how are we going to get to dates and stuff? Like,
right. Yeah. And I think I've seen, right. And I don't think like driving for every girl is like that big of an issue. Like when I was driving, I could have cared less if a guy like could drive or not, to be honest. It's just kind of like in my city, they just have to live in close proximity. Like I always said, on dating apps, so like if it's long distance, this is not going to work unless you like okay driving. Like luckily my boyfriend now like doesn't mind driving at all. But I think that if you're a blind man, one of the I'm trying to think. This is like just my type of man. Like, so every girl is gonna have a different type. But like for me, I tend to go for guys who are definitely like a little bit more masculine. So like I like guys who I feel like I can be protected by, but like someone who's visually impaired can be protected. Like they can give off that energy, they can give off that confidence. Like I don't see a visual impairment as something that like would affect me differently, but I could see some girls maybe like
thinking
again, I think driving is probably actually the least like thing, like the least big deal out of like probably the issues. I think in a girl's mind, in the traditional dating sense, they're just like, okay, if you have a job and you can provide and you're like, and we like are compatible and we can vibe, then like I think the driving thing doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, I feel like working trumps driving.
Definitely.
I feel like for me, it's most of the time women have this mindset of like, oh, he's blind, I'm gonna have to take care of him, and it's like, no, I'm a grown-ass man.
See, and you know, that reminds me of some, like what I was going to say is I feel like when it comes to the differences between being a blind woman and being a blind man is unfortunately because of traditions and blah, 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 the patriarchy, men are already expected to take care of us. Whether we want it or not, society, or
provide, I would say. I feel like as women, we're almost expected to like take care of them in like a home sense.
Yeah, but they're expected to like protect us and provide for us and blah 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 blah. So the fact that we're blind, it's like, oh, I'll keep you safe, like I'll protect you, like you like it doesn't end up hurting us the same way. I feel like what hurts us is the families of the men, because I've had in both my like serious relationships, the moms and like the parents are always, well, is she gonna be able to like cook for you and clean for you and fucking whatever tradition bullshit we're supposed to be able to do? Like she can't see, like is she gonna be able to do that for you? Like, and I feel like that's where it hits us as women, as visually impaired women. But the fact that we're blind doesn't hit us, it just doesn't work the same way. It's like a more long-termy in the home.
Yes.
Like
it's not that initial like, will I go on like, will they go on a date with us? Because realistically, like they probably will. And like a lot of the women on my videos have been like, yeah, well, I usually just don't make it past the first date. Which I don't personally have that same experience. Like I feel like I actually, it's like the opposite, where like if I get them on a date, or if I get them, like that sounds so manipulative. I'm like, if I trick them to getting on a date, or like if they know me in real life and like they see how I function, they see I live alone, they see like all that stuff, and they're like, oh, like it's like they're almost like that stereotype like, that was probably in their head is probably broken.
Yeah.
Whereas like if I'm on the apps, I actually probably would have had a harder time on the apps and like going on actual dates, because once like having to just like disclose that before they'd have like ever had like a meetup with me, they're like, oh, okay. Like, or like the blind, just like the name, like the word blind, just like instantly scares someone off just because of the word and because of the lack of awareness of what that means. Like I was sighted most of my life. Like, to be honest, that word scared me even once I did go blind. Like it took me a long time to accept that word. So I think that's the one nice thing about social media, is that I feel like there has been so much more awareness about it. And people, because there's this community now, have become more confident in their blindness to talk about it. Whereas before there was like, myself included, like I didn't tell, like I remember the day that I wrote a blog post about the fact that I'd gone blind. Like this was probably 2 years ago. And it was the scariest post I'd ever written. But like I thought people were gonna be so judgmental and be like, oh my gosh, like she's blind now, she's incapable, and she's less than what I thought she was gonna be, or like that's what I thought about myself, honestly, not what anyone else was really gonna think.
Yeah,
but like the responses I received were like amazing. And I realized in dating that more often than not, like there are some people that are going to respond really poorly, but there are also some people that really, really surprise you if you give them a chance to.
Definitely. 100%.
I think like Ezric and I, we both are very charming. And so the word blind scares people off. But if we have an in, if you hang out with us as friends, you're going to fall in love with us because we're just that endearing. You know what I mean? We have to be vulnerable, and women like that. And we're also strong and independent because of our disability. And people like that too. You know, I think women just have these superficial things that they want, like, no offense, height, you know what I mean? Like, shorter guys try harder. It's just a fact of life, you know what I mean? But we have this list, and somebody told me once, take your list of 20 things and boil it down to 3 needs, you know?
Non-negotiables.
Right. Don't look at a want as a need, you know, but boil your wants down to 3 needs and then go for them. And then when you find things, you're gonna find things about an individual that you love that you never expected on your list, you know?
Totally.
Especially when people like get to this age, I feel like in the normal dating culture, like, which is usually, I would say, between like probably like high school-ish and like mainly like I would say in your 20s, when people are dating and like serial dating.
Yeah.
But I feel like, kind of like to your point, like guys like you and Ezra, your guys are gonna be the guys that people marry, not the guys that people like are gonna like mess
hook
with.
up with. Yeah.
That's what's
and not
sad,
to say that couldn't or won't happen or like doesn't, but like when you look at the types of guys,
of my disability, I am a hookup. That's the problem. Because
or like, if you guys want that, like it can happen. Like it's not hard, but also
I can't take a woman out, which means she has to come over to my house. So she prepares for a hookup before she considers dating me long term, and that's the sad. That's why I'm retired.
Yeah,
that's why I'm retired.
Right.
I can't with this retirement.
I want friends. I don't need hookups. Like, I want friends. I want people in my life. I want to determine the good from the bad, and that doesn't happen with hookups. So I need something more. I'm not going to accept less.
Yeah, like I think for like people shy, I'm actually not sure how old you are, but like I turned 28 this year, so like I'm getting to that like 30 point, like close to the 30 point, which like I feel like a few years ago, like I wasn't really thinking about like, oh, husband material. I was like, like who do I want right now? Like, I always joke. I was like, I was looking for wasn't looking for Mr. Right. I was looking for Mr. Right now. Whereas like now when I get like a little bit older, and I feel like most women, and honestly, maybe even guys more than women, like once they get to like the 30 mark, guys, like they instantly, like in the classic dating culture, they turn a switch in a second where they're like, okay,
I'm done.
I need to get married now. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And I saw this stat. It was really interesting. And it was like, men don't usually marry the girl that they have like the most, like that they've been the most in love with in their life. They marry the girl that's like around when they're ready.
That's right. I got married at 31 to the girl that was just around when I was ready. You're exactly right.
And I was just like, what?
She was the devil, by the way. So I don't recommend doing that.
Not the devil.
I've heard that from quite a few people.
Yeah.
Hopefully my first marriage is not to someone that I regret. But also, if it is, whatever.
I like what Caitlin said. She was looking for what she wanted. She wasn't looking for what wanted her. And I think that's an important distinction. Like, don't accept just whatever. Just stand your ground, you know, look for what you want, not what wants you.
Another thing I want to point out is if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. It's 100%. A lesson learned. It's, you know, it's a chapter you could add to your book, but it's not meant to be reread until the new one is written.
Well, I think the only downfall to like all these apps in this dating culture is that people have become a lot less capable in navigating relationships through struggles, because there's this like abundance of people, like whether it's on social media or on apps, that you can just be like, okay, well, you don't check this box. I'm just going to go back on the app and find someone that does.
Like, no one is working through. There are so many, I'm sure there has been so many like 1 to 3 month relationships that probably could have lasted longer and been happier if they just actually worked through the first struggle they hit, instead of just being like, this is too hard, bye.
I always look at it as like
the whole ghosting thing.
When a plane lands, it hits the runway and there's friction, right? And that's like a relationship. But if you work through that, there's going to be a slightly less friction, slightly less, until you land the plane and everything's smooth. But you got to get past that friction of meeting each other in a different space. You know what I mean?
I think the friction is where the relationship actually grows the most.
Right.
100%.
Exactly. That's the best part, right? When you see somebody as mad as they can possibly be and you still like love them, you're like, oh my God, I just want to protect you. You're so mad. You're not like, I got to get away. Those moments are like,
you trust them more, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if this is upsetting you or I'm upsetting you, then clearly you give a shit.
Right.
Like it's to the point where it's like if you're fighting, then you're fighting for something. If you're walking away, then you're just walking away. Like there's no, people want to be fought for.
And like people always view fighting and conflict as, if we're fighting, the relationship isn't good anymore. It's like, no, fighting is, you need to be fighting in a relationship. Like it's okay to get mad. It's okay to verbalize when things are upsetting you. That's how you make the relationship stronger. That's how you make it better. Like
it's
how you handle a conflict is important.
Does your partner see it as important? Or do they see them as more important than you? Like if you're bringing me something, I should see that it's more important to you than me, and I should listen, right? That's how you grow. But when I'm like, I got to think about me, then suddenly you're not thinking about your other person, and then everything falls apart.
Fights are important, especially and how you resolve them is important. Because it's just being like, okay, we yelled about it, we're over it, we're moving on. Some situations need more than that. Some situations need reflection and conversation after you just yelled at each other. And maybe it's the next day, or maybe it's like a week from now, or maybe it's, but going back, revisiting it, like, okay, this is what you said, this is what I said, let's be civil and have like a conversation now. And see if one of us is making more sense than the other, if we're both making sense but in different ways, or figuring it out after the fact, and being able to humble yourself enough, which is so hard to do, especially when you think, oh my God.
I'm so stubborn, so I have a very hard time. Like, I'm like, well, I'm sorry that what I said hurt you, but I'm not sorry. Like, I'm sorry you're weak and it hurt you, but like, maybe you need to get stronger.
I'm down. I don't do well at verbalizing initially, but if somebody sticks with me, I'll repeat it and it'll make more sense,
Yes.
But initially it just sounds like,
right. And also like not every conflict needs a resolution.
Right.
Like some conflict is just like, I just need to say this because it upset me. Like, I know you didn't like intend on hurting me. I know that's not like, but like I was just in a bad mood and what you did hurt me. I just needed to say it so I don't sit and resent you for the next 2 days.
Exactly.
Until I forget about it.
Yeah. I just need to get it out so I don't bottle it up. And if we can talk about it, whatever. But sometimes you just need to let it out.
I say that a lot. It's not you, it's me. I'm having an issue with something from my past, and that shouldn't affect my future. But right now, it's about me being irritated with something. And I know you can see it. I'm just letting you know it's not you, it's me.
Which, like, even communicating that is important. Because I'm like, people, when they like silence and like neglect, and like I'm the same way. Where like I'll shut down if I'm like having a hard time. Like I won't tell anyone. Like if I'm having a hard time, I tell people, like, you literally will have no idea.
Right.
And like that scares people sometimes. They're like, well, how do I help you? I'm like, well, you can't. And like, I'm like, well, what can I do? Can I fix it? Can I like, no, like, I'll be fine. I just have to get over it. Like I just have to get through it and get myself out of the little funk.
Right.
But I've learned that like sometimes like
you did was normal.
And sometimes I've learned that like communicating, like it may not really benefit me, but it benefits them because it puts their mind at ease. And like, that's part of being in a relationship is like, okay, maybe I don't need to talk it out, but maybe you need to hear me say like certain things so that your mind isn't going a million miles a minute and thinking
what
that
did I
you
do
did
in the
something.
past? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well,
And
they
then
did do
I do
something,
that a
but what
lot.
they did was normal, you know?
Right.
Sometimes it's just a normal thing, but somebody in your past used that in an abnormal way. And so it strikes you and you're like, oh, I don't like that, but it's normal.
Right.
Maybe a guy gave you flowers because he was a jerk to you, and then a nice guy gives you flowers randomly, and you're like, was he a jerk? Now I know that, you know, and
I
you're
mean,
like,
both are okay.
right,
Like
right.
the flowers are a good gesture no matter what day it is.
But if they're attached to something negative, then maybe in a positive light you still have that negative attachment in other ways. Landmines, you know what I mean?
Relationships are so hard, and I feel like people are just lazy sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they end because they're lazy, sometimes they end because they're supposed to.
Yeah.
You know,
I think people just have a hard time. It's like if they don't know their self-worth, they have a hard time like clearly seeing. Like I have a lot of guy friends that I've talked to, a lot of like men in my life about this, where like men are not that complicated. Like girls overcomplicate what guys do. They're like, well, he hasn't called me in like 2 weeks, but he's just really busy. And oh my God, he texted me like he loves me now. And I'm like, if a guy likes you, you will know. That is like,
right.
If you feel confused past like our normal like women on our freaking period, because let's be honest, we all are psycho at some point, and we're like, well, like we read too much into things. Like women are complicated. It's just how we are. Men are very, very simple.
Yeah.
If they like you, they will normally make it known in some way. They won't be playing games. Like you don't need to play games with a guy who's ready to be in a relationship. It's just you don't need to.
It's the same quote that I keep saying everywhere. I keep seeing it everywhere all the time on TikToks. It'll just randomly come up. It'll be some girl and she'll be like, just so you know, if they want to, they will.
That's right. That's right.
They want to, they will. And if they want, they will.
Yes. I've seen that everywhere, and I've seen so many girls like make videos about like, well, that's not always true. And I'm like, okay, I mean, some of the points you made are valid. Like, yeah, maybe he wants to, but he's not in the right place to do it. That still doesn't mean that you should use that as an excuse. He's still not in the right place. Like, or I've heard guys, they're like, well, I'm not looking for a relationship, and then girls in their mind, or I mean, this I guess could go either way, but I would say men are correct than women when it comes to this kind of stuff.
I always say,
like, well, I'm going to try and make him want a relationship with me. If he falls in love with me, then he'll be ready for a relationship.
I hate that.
Stop trying to make a Tinder guy a marriage. You know what I mean? Like take the level for what it is. Like level 1 is different than level 5. Stop dreaming about level 5. Right.
Yeah. They don't want a relationship and they just want something casual.
Well, we just met on Tinder 2 weeks ago. I don't know. You know, you're dreaming of a future because you want to know if I'll reach the end point with you instead of the journey. So you're like, is he good at level 5? And I'm sitting here going in level 1, picking my butt, you know?
Like I need some guys looking for level 1. Women's like, okay, well, what about if we get to level 5? It's like, let's level 1 first.
Yeah. Yeah, I say honestly, holding somebody's hand can be the most intense and exciting thing initially, right? And if you go past those stages and suddenly you're like in pre-marriage on your first date, you're missing a lot of joys. You know what I mean? A lot of little and
it'll catch up to you. If you start like saying and like jumping to those phases too early, then suddenly it's like your time spent in the relationship will always catch up to like where you feel like your emotions are. Yeah. And it's going to be hard. Like it's not going to be easy. And a lot of relationships, I feel like, fail at that point because on either side, people are over committing their feelings and they're saying, because they're feeling these intense feelings that they think are maybe true. Like I'm not saying people are maybe trying to be deceitful when it comes to this. Yeah. I think they genuinely do feel these things in those moments, but they don't think about the commitment behind some of the things that they're saying.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, like I could really see a life with you. It's like, okay, well, we've never met. Like, so let's maybe like live some life together first, or they won't or they've never met the family. It's like relationships have such like important phases.
There's so many levels.
You can't just skip to a phase.
Right.
100%, 100,000%. So much. There's so many things that you have to like, even just like living together. Living together is like one of the hardest things ever. And people are like, I've known you for 3 months. Let's do it.
Right. Vacations are another one. If you do that early in your relationship, a vacation can kill you if it's too long, you know?
I always tell people that the only thing with my opinion, this is just my like personal opinion, because I've lived with a guy, I will never again live with a guy just out of convenience. Because I think that is the worst. Like that's where a lot of, and again, I'm speaking from a woman's side. So I'm going to say like men a lot because this is like my experience with men and like my friends' experience. And like guys will settle into like, oh, we're living together. We're kind of living the married life. Yep. And a lot of women, they want some sort of commitment. They want to get married. Not all, but like, it's easy to settle into like, oh, we're living married. And I did that with one of my exes. We lived together for 3 years. And like we were living married. Like when we broke up, in some ways it felt like a divorce because we were separating our stuff. Our finances had been like combined in some ways. Like we were splitting bills, and like honestly, he was one of the easiest roommates. Like I would have lived with him again, just like because he was easy to live with. But I told myself now, I was like, okay, if I'm going to live with someone, like that's going to be somewhat of a commitment. That means like we're taking a next step. It's not just going to be because I want to save money on rent or because my life will be easier because you're always here. Like. And I think a lot of people do that. They're like, well, I just want to see them all the time. It's like, okay, well, that's great, but it's not fun to break up your stuff if it doesn't work out.
It is difficult. It is a whole thing. You roped up in bills and maybe you got like an account together, or maybe you got a pet, or maybe you like there's so many things.
Yes. Even like when you like, and like I think one of the hardest things is when you move into like someone's space because it's their space already. Like, I'm nervous about doing that, and like my friend did that before she married her husband. Like they moved into like her apartment, or sorry, she moved into his apartment before they like bought their house. And I think that can be really, really hard for a girl to move in, because I think women, especially, we're very like protective of our space because like we like things a certain way. We like visuals. We like to look nice. At least I do.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, what does your stuff really need? Like, what else? Can you just bring like an overnight bag and like you can just live here, but like my stuff stays, and like we'll just use the stuff that I don't have. And like
we'll just put you where you
and like combining stuff. I feel like it's probably one of the hardest things about even living together is going through that process.
Yeah. It was fun moving in together and like picking out stuff because neither of us had anything. Like he had like a desk and like I had just my stuff. I didn't have any furniture that I wanted to take from my old place. So like it's like, oh cool, we get to figure out. That's another thing, figuring out your design style. Like
there's something my boyfriend doesn't care.
Yeah, that's great if they don't care, but Joe cares and he likes nice things. So
oh Joe, you're ruining it for the rest of us. We don't care. We don't care. I mean, don't over frilly it. Let people know.
No, you have to make it very like don't have pink just everywhere. Like
ew.
Like my apartment is mainly like black and white, gray and blue. Like pretty gender neutral.
Yeah.
But we're happy with any little space we can call our own. Just like any woman wants her bedroom to run to, you know, we kind of want a place where we can go and just collect our thoughts. And
Everybody
you want us to have that place. Yeah. Everybody wants their partner to have a place where they can go to be by themselves. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of interference.
Really hard in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah. Oh God, it is. It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is difficult.
But I've had relationships now. Congratulations. So you both have your own space, right?
Yeah, we turned the second bedroom into like an office / guest room. So like my stuff is on one side and his stuff is on the other, but usually we're not in there at the same time. Yeah. So we can just go chill.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not even like having your own space. Like it's having like you guys can live like exist at the same time in separate spaces and have like separate spaces where you're not like on top of each other.
Yes, 100%. Just having the space to spread out a little bit and then just come back.
Yeah. I've been in those relationships where it's like
drive is that they can leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, okay, bye. You go do something else.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that's horrible as a man that doesn't drive. I was stuck at a house and I was like, there's no Ubers available at 2 in the morning. And she had to call me a lift, you know?
Let me tell you, that's not just a man thing. That's like a woman thing too. Like if you're
Yeah.
stuck, it's just the worst
Like, I
thing.
need to
You're like,
go.
I just want to go home.
Right. Yeah. I think for me though, as soon as even if I'm having a good time, once I realize I'm stuck, I don't want to be stuck. So even if
No.
it's a good time, I want to figure out when I exit, you know?
Oh, I always have an exit strategy, I feel like.
If
Like,
I don't,
always
I get
know-
very anxious.
Yeah,
Do you?
me too. I always have to know who my ride home is and who my backup
Mhm.
ride home is.
Or like when the
Yes.
ride is going home. And that person needs to be very aware that like you better be ready to stick to that. If I'm committing to go, you better be
Yes.
ready to like commit to like making sure that I get home when you say I'm gonna get home.
Yes. I told my friend said, you don't want to go out. And I said, because I don't know when I'm coming home. Like you don't stick to a schedule. And I like to know when I'm coming home. I have other things in my life, but I feel selfish. So thank you for saying that, you know?
No, I had to learn that because I used to be the driver. Like I used to do that for that specific reason. Like even when I could drive, I would drive separately so I could leave when I wanted to. And
Right.
I had a lot of anxiety and like I felt very stuck and I would give people a lot of my time even because I felt like I had to. I felt like I had to like bend over backwards for people just to like do things with them and I'd feel guilty about them having to drive me home. But I just told them, I'm like, you know what? Like I am so happy to go do certain things with you. I just need you to be upfront about when you're going to make sure I get home. And you can even say like, you know what? I'm not sure. It may be between this and this, but like worst case, this. Like I just need to know what it's going to be and like what to expect ahead of time.
Expectations. Yeah.
Yes. And it took me a long time to like set those boundaries with people, especially after I hadn't created them for so long. But once I did, I felt so much better because now like I can say no to people and not feel so guilty about it.
Yeah.
If I don't want to go spend a week and a half with you and your family somewhere, I don't feel bad. Like it's like realistically, like, cause like some people like they're fine with that. They can't be alone. They need to be with people. And I'm like, no, I'm an introvert. I need to be alone.
Me too.
I want to come home to my bed. If it is going to make their life super inconvenient, I'll be like, yeah, I'll stay overnight at your house, like one night max. Like if it's going to be like convenient and I know where I'm staying and I have a bed, like whatever. I don't really care.
I'll do anything with the time frame. I'll stand on my head for an hour, but don't make me stand on my head for an hour and 1 minute. Like that's what if you tell me the parameter, we're going to go to this party, it might be till 2 in the morning. I'm there for the long haul. I'll help you clean up. I'll help you do it. But if you tell me we're just going to pop in for an hour at this store and suddenly we're at our fourth store and it's 4 hours later, then I'm really irritated. And it's only because it seems disrespectful to me that you didn't it's like you're trying to trick me and you got me and now you want control over me and I'm very independent.
Or it's like to them, it doesn't seem like a big deal. It's like, oh, you just come with me quick. And it's like, well, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, I have no power not to now because you're driving. Even if like, it's like, I don't want to do that with you.
Yeah. I'm super like, I'm really easygoing and I am an extrovert. I love people. I love being out. And so usually what I do is if I have plans or I need to be home at a certain time, I'll just tell a person like, yes, I'll do this, but I need to be home by this time.
Right.
Or even if I don't have something to do, but I want to be home at that time, I just let them know beforehand. Or like, if they're like, this is what we're going to do. And then we're in the car. Usually the people who drive me around are good at being like, are you okay with this? Like something came up, I need to stop here. Are you cool with that? And I've never really had a problem being like, I'd rather not. Like, if you could take me home, that'd be great. Or yeah, sure, I don't care. Like I've always been pretty good at just being able to answer that question. Like, are you cool with this? Yes, I'm cool with it. No, I'm not cool with it. And most people ask. I'm usually not just like blindly taken out for a ride and like, I don't know what's going on.
I feel like I always am. Like I need to go to the doctor. Can I have a ride? My buddy, we wound up an hour and a half after my doctor appointment at a window warehouse, me sitting there waiting, and he looked at me and realized, oh, because he took advantage of having me out so he could go do something for himself and have company. But I was
gonna say, I think that's what they like, is they're like, they want someone to run those errands with them, and it's like it's more fun for them. They're like, oh, well, I like this. What do you mean you don't?
No, I don't see any of this stuff. I don't know what you're looking at.
I'm cool to do that if I know that's what's going on. So like if I call and I'm like, hey, I need to go do this thing, would you be willing to take me? And they're like, yeah, but I also need to do this, this, and this. Are you cool with going? And I'd be like, sure, whatever.
Yes. I will say yes almost 100% of the time if they say that. Yeah.
That's something I wish I could go back and tell my like younger blind self, like my blind baby self, would be to like be okay with saying no to people when they ask if they can, like, 'cause I always think I just felt guilty and I felt like I needed to say yes. Oh yeah, it's fine. But then like I'd say yes to one thing and they'd be like, okay, well, what about this? Like this too. And I'd be like,
right.
Okay. They're like, what's on the way? Like, I don't want to drive you back and then drive all the way. Like, like I wish that's like advice I would give to someone like who, I mean, anyone, I guess, like, especially when you're like newly blind. I think you think like you'd have this different.
Like, there's this guilt that comes with it.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Like you need to get rid of it because if someone's taking you, like, you're probably helping them in some way of your life. And
and the other thing is like if I ask for a ride, they'll say what time. I have to be specific in the time frame in ending too. Like I need you between 10 and 12 because it lets people know after 12 I'm going to be looking for another solution. I'm not going to spend my whole day waiting for you, you know. So if you can help me between 10 and 12, that's great. If it's at 12:15 and you didn't tell me at 12, you should know I'm making other plans, you know.
I feel like you just also learn which people are better about that and which people just to like not ask. Like my dad is great about it. He'll just be like, all right, let's go get it done and then bring you home.
Yeah.
I love those people.
So I think we should be wrapping up. It's been more than an hour. But to close out, I think what we should do is just each give, you know, a little piece of dating advice and, you know, a way to reach us or find us. So let's start off with Jason and then move on to Shy and see how it goes.
Okay.
You can find me on Twitter at Public Access Pod. You can find my podcast, Public Access America, anywhere you find your favorite podcast. You can find me on Inspirations Beyond Disabilities, and my dating advice is love yourself first and don't do it. Just do something else. Go bake a pie because you'll have pie at the end, you know?
Shy.
Okay, so my name's Not So Shy on Everything. I really only use TikTok, but Instagram is there too if you feel like it. My dating advice is probably just my mantra since 7th grade is forever doesn't exist. So take the time, whatever the time is, take it for what it is. That's all I'm gonna say, I guess.
Okay.
So let me, Kate.
On TikTok and Instagram, my handle is Caitlin Goodsell. I'm gonna spell it out because there's a million ways to spell Caitlin. KATLYNN, Goodsell, GOODSELL. My TikTok is mainly blind Minnesota stuff, and my Instagram is definitely like more health and wellness and like my personal life. So they're kind of each platforms used for different things, but my piece of dating advice is to have confidence in who you are, what you bring, and what you value before you try to figure it out. Like once you have confidence in who you are, it's going to be a lot easier to know what you'll accept from other people.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's good advice.
So I'm Ezric. You can find me on TikTok at blind_in_ny. And you can find me on Instagram at new_Yorks_blindest. And my dating advice, honestly, is like everybody's been saying, love yourself, but also remember, never give up. Like at the end of the day, if it don't work, there's always the next, there's always the next one. What was it that Jay-Z said? On to the next one.
On to the next one. Totally. Love isn't selfish.
Why I worship you all. You're just so observant and perspectives. I love it.
I do want to selfishly plug. I'm trying to get this off the ground. I'm trying to do TikTok group, like not a TikTok group, a WhatsApp group for blind stoners. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Oh my God, Ezra, you'd be so happy.
Such a niche group.
It is a very niche group.
It really is.
Super niche. But I recently tried weed for the first time. Ha 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 ha.
This I have to hear more about.
I don't think I'm a singer, but I did try
it.
And that ends our live stream, by the way. Bye, everybody.
Just when it gets juicy.